Yes. Yay. Hello, hello, hello. Everybody, are you still here? Um, I am so sorry I'm late if you are here and if I did this correctly. I feel like I did this correctly tonight. So, minus the being late part. Um, I see a chat going, but I can't tell if it's old or new. So, we'll find out here in a second. Um, Yes, here I am, Suzanne. Hello. Suzanne says, wait, here she is. Overcoming Understanding is here. Doug is here. Henry is here. Raspberry is here. Hey, guys. Um, let's see. So, yes, I am here. I am so sorry I'm late. I had a friend of mine invite me to go see another really interesting YouTuber talk tonight. So we went to go see him talk, and he was interesting and hilarious and super cute. Tyler Oakley, if you guys know who he is. So we got. I only thought it was going to go for an hour, so I sped all the way home and was hoping I wasn't going to get pulled over. So thankfully, it was a pretty uneventful ride home. But yes, so I apologize for being late. How is everybody doing tonight? Peace Pom Pom is here. Toxic Relationships No More is here. She says Gettysburg is in the house. Very cool. Cindy is here. So we might have a small group tonight because I got here so late. Candy's here. Overcoming Understanding says, I assumed you were having internet issues. LOL. That would be generally a very valid assumption. It's amazing that I even have a YouTube channel. Like I have ongoing chaos, not even drama. Like it's flat out chaos with technology. So normally I would be having internet issues, but I think I have this live stream figured out. So now next week my goal is going to be I want to start adding Periscope and the Facebook live stream. Did you guys know that Facebook has a live stream now as well? But now I need to figure out how to live stream to Facebook and maintain privacy. So I'm going to have to like user test that and figure and just make sure I'm doing that right. So hi, Adrian. Adrian's here. He says, "Hi, Dana. I love your earrings." Thanks. Me too. They're, I like the color and the shape. Music is here. It says, "Sorry to hear that, Henry." So I miss. Oh, Henry, I'm so sorry. Henry says he had a friend die of cancer today. Oh, I'm sorry. How are you doing? I mean, I know that's incredibly intense, but what a really rough day. I'm so sorry. Dave is here. Hey, Dave. Um, yes, I'm glad I made it as well. So, ooh, creepy. Overcoming Understanding says Periscope isn't good for privacy. She once periscoped and someone knew where I was sitting in the park. That is super creepy. I'll have to see if I can do again, like I need to be thinking about stuff like that, and it's frustrating because I don't think about stuff like that, and then I need to be because my channel's getting bigger and I've already had some run-ins with some potentially dangerous people. So she says, "Don't do Periscope. It maps your location." I wonder if there's a way I can turn it off on Periscope. So I'll have to play with that. Sarah's here and says, everybody, Periscope's a live streaming platform. Yeah, Periscope is a live stream and it goes through, they're like, it's part of Twitter. So like if you follow me on Twitter, you would get an update every time I went live, which, can be great. But if, you know, like you're like overcoming understanding and you're in a park, then people can find where you are, and that's creepy. Let's see. Music asks, "Hey Dana, I have a question. What makes a narcissist a narcissist? Is it abuse or are they born this way?" Well, that's a great question. And so nobody knows for sure, right? There's different theories about it. There's kind of the whole like ongoing nature versus nurture debate, right? So you have kind of one theory that's more of the nurture, which is that if a person generally has a narcissist or an otherwise abusive or neglectful or some sort of trauma in their early, like the first kind of like 6 years of their childhood, that then they go on to become a narcissist. That does hold true, but then there's always that exception, right? Because then there's people that come from really dysfunctional homes and they are not a narcissist. If anything, they're more on the codependent side, or they are fairly well adjusted and go on to be fine. So then there's the whole nature argument, because there's certain parts of the brain. So they've done different brain scans, on people that would be more like on criminals, which are more like the antisocial personality disordered people, which are more like the sociopaths and psychopaths, which is just kind of more, it's like a narcissist 2.0 kind of a thing. And they found that different areas of their brain don't light up, or that they're either underactive or overactive. So different parts that control aggression, different parts that control impulsivity, and trauma in general. Spanking, getting hit, getting beaten up, seeing trauma, getting verbal abuse, it does cause changes in the brain. So it could be a little bit of both. It could just be, I've actually talked to quite a few parents who are absolutely besides themselves and are really upset with kind of how their children turned out. They don't understand it. They have a lot of guilt. They have a lot of self-blame, and their other children turned out fine. And so they don't understand, like, how did this one child turn out to be in and out of prison, and they just don't get it. That was kind of the situation with both Jack and Steve. Both of their siblings were fine. I think I'd mentioned this. I know I've mentioned this before in a video. Steve's mom at one point had pulled his wife, before they were married, had pulled her aside and said, "There's something wrong with him. He lacks the ability to love." And the mom was trying to warn her, like, there's something, obviously really wrong with my child. And she thought, what a terrible thing for a mother to say. She just didn't understand that. But all of the other kids didn't have this issue. He did. And same thing with Jack. None of his siblings talked to him. So, it's hard to say. Do narcs get married to one another? Generally, they don't, but it does happen. I mean, there have been many, these famous. If you look at different like couples that have been serial killers, online. There's all these different stories about different people, crime partners or whatever, that are husband and wife, kind of Bonnie and Clyde type teams. Again, that's more on like the sociopath side of the spectrum. But when I say that, I don't want people to get hung up on that, because we're talking just about different degrees of problematic behavior is what we're talking about. And it's not really important for our purposes, really for anybody's purposes, unless they're going to work towards a cure, to really kind of split hairs and figure out, is this person a narcissist or are they a sociopath? It's kind of like trying to figure out, well, which type of poison am I drinking? Like, does it matter if it's bleach, or does it matter if it's Drano? It doesn't really matter. Both are going to cause damage to you. So just avoid both. But yeah, generally narcissists gravitate more towards codependent people, because you've kind of got this one really dominant personality, the narcissistic personality, who is all about themselves. They're very selfish. And then you've got the codependent, who is generally always forgiving, and who's okay with kind of being in the background and picking up the pieces. So, let's see. Yeah, Marie. Okay, hi, Marie. Marie asks, or says, I should say, Dana, my ex narcissist father said the same thing to me. He pulled me aside one Christmas morning, asking me how I could be with his son, and asked me if I found him weird. I guess he was trying to warn me. I found out later the hard way. So I, I think a lot of people, like parents and such, people, not even just parents, like people in general, they, you know, it's nice to have that validation because they've probably been growing up with it. They might not know that personality disorders exist, or that they just might not know kind of what's going on. And so they might be doing their best to try to warn somebody else. But they also might think, is it just me? Like, am I just being too hypercritical of my child? Um, like, we all justify things in really different ways, so that he might not have known. And that's why he was maybe asking you, like, hey, is this problematic, or are you thinking it's weird, or is it just me, kind of a thing. Let me scroll up here. Laura says, hi, Dana is monologuing, i.e., talking for a long time without input, a common trait among narcissists. What are you saying, Laura? Are you hinting that I am monologuing for long periods of time and it's problematic behavior? Yeah, it generally can. Assuming I'm not a narcissist, I'm just saying. But yeah, a lot of them do. There's not a lot of dialogue with narcissists. It tends to be very one-sided. Especially if they can be the center of attention. So you have kind of more of like the she says, haha, no, of course not. Okay, good. Um, you have more, like, you have the covert ones and you have the overt ones. And then the more of the overt ones, I like to think of those as like that guy or like that girl at the party. They're the ones that go on and on and on. They're trying to impress everybody. They talk at people, and they're just exhausting to be around. The overt ones do tend to just like monologue a lot, but the covert ones tend to be really good at it. So they do a much better job at listening and, kind of having that back and forth, having a good conversation. So Dave asked earlier, are you going to start your series on codependency soon? Um, the plan is for me to start it soon. I am trying to gather all my thoughts. So I've been working on my book, for the red flags of a narcissist, and my series on codependency is designed to go very much hand in hand with that. So just when I kind of think I have my message and my voice and my kind of everything that I want to say down, then I think of another piece to the puzzle, and I'm like, oh yeah, I really need to add that, and then that kind of changes other things. So I am working on it. I really am working on it. So I honestly still have probably about a good 30 videos left to do for my red flags of a narcissist series that I need to kick out. But I'm not going to wait. I don't think I'm going to wait to finish. I was originally thinking that I was going to finish the red flags of the narcissist series and then move on to the codependency series, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and start the codependency series. So, I have been sick for almost a month now, and I have just had no, I just have, it's been nonstop. I have had a lot of stuff going on. So, I, I don't know when the codependency series is going to start. I'm going to say, what is this now? Middle of February. I could, yeah, I'm going to say maybe in about the next few weeks. So, Overcoming Understanding says, I will totally buy that book. I want it autographed. Okay, that's done and done. So it's huge. It's huge. Let me see if I have. Oh, I don't have. Do I have it out here? No, I moved it into the back room. I actually printed out the rough draft copy of the book, and it's like this thick. It's 220 pages already, and it's still like rough draft form. So it's exciting. Been there asks, do narcissists know that they are narcissists? Generally, no, they don't. I mean, you can ask them. They okay. So let me back up a little bit. If you ask, if you ask a narcissist, "Hey, are you a narcissist?" They might say yes, but they don't mean that in like the clinical term. Like they're, to them, when they think of the word narcissist, they think, "Oh, do you really love yourself?" Or "You must think you're so great." And so when they say, "Yes, I'm a narcissist," that's what they're agreeing to. They're not saying, "Oh yes, I'm very grandiose and entitled, and I manipulate and lie and exploit people." Like they're not agreeing to that part. They're agreeing to that. Oh, you must really love yourself. So narcissists. What's so problematic about them is they lack insight into the fact that they have a problem. So it's and so people when people ask that a lot, they'll they'll say, I cannot read and talk, think and talk at the same time. It's terrible. Well, I totally forgot what I was saying. Narcissists and oh, okay. Suzanne said, I read a study that said a high percentage of them said that they were narcissists and then tested as narcissists. Yeah, I would agree, but they they're not talking about like the clinically diagnosed form. I think most people that I mean, ironically or interestingly enough, if somebody thinks, yeah, I love myself, like I am, number one, they probably would clinically test as a narcissist, but it's just, you know, the covert narcissists, they won't admit to that. Like your overt narcissists will, but your covert narcissists won't. And same with like your antisocials, your sociopaths or psychopaths. They generally won't because they're con artists. Like that's what they are. They have a pattern, an ongoing, pervasive pattern of exploiting people. And so they don't admit to that because then their con game would be up. So, let's see. Let me scroll up. Peace Pom Pom says, exciting day tomorrow. I'm moving. Yay. I've written and planned a blessing ceremony for my new home and life. Now I just have to pack everything. That is awesome. Yay you. What a relief, huh? Like that's got to be huge to be able to just start over like a brand new chapter. That's just awesome. So toxic relationships, that's a great point. She says, or he says, I'm not sure if you're he or she says, they will say that you are the narcissist. So yes, that's very common for narcissists or kind of, sociopaths or psychopaths or whatever, to spin it back around and then blame everybody else because they don't have insight to that they're the problem. It's kind of weird, like they project everything onto other people, and so they'll do that in a couple different ways. So they'll blame other people for their behavior. So if they are cheating, then they'll accuse other people of cheating. If they're manipulating, they'll accuse you of manipulating. And I don't think that they are consciously aware. Well, maybe half of them are. I don't think all of them are always aware that they're doing that. I was reading a really interesting article the other day. I don't know if I mentioned this last live stream or not, about men that had gone through kind of like abusive partner rehabilitation type programs, which, just FYI, the success rate on that is like really, really low. But what the therapist who had run the group was talking about was saying that it's really common for abusive partners, even people that are like physically abusive. So it's not like a he said, she said kind of emotional manipulation where it can be kind of gray area for other people trying to figure out, like, is it perception? Like, what's really going on here? Abusive partners, okay, that are like seriously domestic violence kind of level of abusive, they defined themselves as, kind, good, easygoing, lighthearted, all of these characteristics that they weren't. So they had really identified as basically all of their partner's characteristics, and then of course they had projected all of their, their negative characteristics onto their partner. And so like the number one thing, kind of like the whole what do you common saying for abusive people is, look at what you made me do. And so that's generally why, because that mindset behind that is, you made me hit you or yell at you or leave or do whatever because of your bad behavior. And so then the victim's like, what did I even do? I didn't do anything. But they spin things so well that they blame and they project, and there's no accountability. It's really, really crazy making. So, great question. Okay, Laura asked, scrolling up, hold on. Okay. Laura asks, one of the red flags you've mentioned is having the feeling that something is off. Did you feel that way with Jack or Steve, or did everything seem normal until the end? Great question. So, no, I had that feeling that something was off within, like, the first, I want to say 3 days, but I think it was really probably within the first 3 hours of getting to know both of them. And so that's the thing, like, that's the thing with problematic behavior. So but okay, so there were red flags up front. There was that feeling that something was off. I glossed over a lot of those red flags thinking no one's perfect. I just kind of excused a lot of, questionable behavior. Again, just kind of being naive and just, I guess, overly optimistic, and just, I wanted to believe what I wanted to believe. And, but other than that, throughout both of those relationships, they were really good, to my face. So, but then at the end, then that was when the truth all came out in the double lives, and a bunch of the chaos and the drama, and just everything fell apart. So that was what was so, especially with Jack, like that was what was so crazy making for me. And why I think I had a lot of PTSD kind of symptoms, because it didn't compute. Like, how can this person, I thought this person was one of my best friends, and here he is potentially trying to kill me. And I mean, at a minimum, had this whole double life. And I mean, it was just Lifetime TV movie kind of crazy stuff. So I kept trying to make sense of all of it. And all I could cling to was the fact that I knew something was off in the beginning. And so that's why I have this little, like, peace guy here. So this is my reminder to always follow your peace. Always follow your peace with everything, with people, with situations, with jobs, with whatever you're doing. If you don't have peace about something, that's a real sign to take a step back and kind of examine why, and then do what you need to do in order to move to a place of peace. Because honestly, life's too short. Like, a life's too short to be miserable at a job or in a relationship, or kind of anything else. Like, if it feels like something's off, it's something's off. So here's kind of what I have been finding in talking to, hundreds, if not thousands of people by now. And in my own life, is problematic behavior follows a very kind of set course. And it always, always starts off with that feeling that something's off. And that feeling is often it might not make a lot of sense. Like, it might just be the way that they look at you. It might be the way that they say something. It might not be so obvious, right? It just might be again, it's just that funny feeling, like, that's kind of weird. But then that feeling is followed by introspection. And that's the whole feeling of, is it me or is it them? Like, what's really going on here? Like, and then that kind of grows to wondering, do I have issues with my past or with trust, or am I being hypervigilant? Again, a kind of examining, is it me or is it them? And then being confused. And then next thing you know, you're on YouTube and you're Googling, compulsive lying, or you're Googling something and then you find me or somebody else, and you're trying to make sense of what you're experiencing. So if you find yourself Googling behavior or talking to your friends or journaling about something or really wondering, is it them or is it me? Especially if this is especially if it's an ongoing pattern where you're questioning your sanity, you're questioning your perception of things, you're questioning if you're making a bigger deal out of things than they really are, that's a sign that something's off. And it's a great sign to take some steps back and to really examine how and where things got off and to clear up that confusion. Because healthy people in healthy relationships, there's not that pervasive feeling. They're not even pervasive. There's not that level of confusion, because people that have nothing to hide nothing. And so any type of confusion that happens, if there's questionable behavior or there's an issue, it can generally be addressed right away, and it's not a big deal, and it's like resolved within a few minutes. So, those are kind of early warning signs that something's off. Then that's kind of followed if those signs are, if we're not listening to those signs, because that's really what that is that's the early stages of cognitive dissonance. And so the later stages of cognitive dissonance is more extreme signs of like justifying, minimizing, denying, blaming, problematic behavior, and wanting to see what we want to see. So like I was saying, like with me and Jack, really this is probably a better example that everybody can relate to is any Jerry Springer episode or any like Maury Povich episode where they have these relationship triangles come on, right? And to the rest of the world, all of us viewers, we can see it and we're like, what is this person thinking? Like, obviously this guy's wife has been cheating on him with every guy in town, and he's not seeing it. Right? Like he's really clinging to hope that she really does work 4 jobs and that's why she's so busy. And, it's amazing the lies that we can tell ourselves in order to continue staying in a situation. So pay attention to confusion, because confusion is the first sign that there's problematic behavior afoot. Doesn't necessarily mean they're a narcissist. It just means that there's problematic behavior afoot. And what is more important, is how quickly that problematic behavior can be resolved, and does it keep repeating? Because if it keeps repeating and it's not getting resolved, because if it was resolved it wouldn't repeat, right? If it keeps repeating, if you find yourself going around that same mountain with somebody time and time again, then it generally means that they're not ready or willing or able to change. And then you have to kind of ask yourself, okay, I'm in a relationship with a person who's not ready, willing, or able to change. Am I ready, willing, or able to leave? Or at a minimum, kind of where's my line in the sand? So when I am ready to leave, I can at least tell myself I gave it my best, and now I just got to walk away because this is not working for me, So, okay. Excuse me. Let's see, more questions here. It's cute name. Little Britches. Little Britches says, why does my narcissist keep pushing me to widen out and make new friends? That's a really great question. I don't know. It might, they might be doing that because it's an excuse for them to have more time to do whatever it is that they're doing. That's kind of devious behavior. Or, if you're really dealing with a narcissist, everything that they do is manipulative. So there's always some sort of angle for it. It's just, it's so hard to say. I mean, yes. Okay. So John, hi John. John makes a really great comment. It says, something I tell myself all the time is to remind myself the person you presented, the person I thought you were, the person I miss doesn't exist. Yes. Yes, I agree completely. So that was something that I told myself a lot too with both Steve and Jack, you know, because I loved both of them. I really thought we were going to have a future together, and was reminding myself, you know, the person that I love, you know, I really miss the person that I thought they were. And I did. I really, the guy that I thought that they were, the, you know, the guy that I thought Jack was, I really loved that man. He was a really fantastic man. That was not who he really was. So for me, that made it easier to walk away, realizing that I was in love with the fantasy. I wasn't in love with the real person. So, you know, it does help to kind of separate that. Um, Yeah, toxic relationship says normally they isolate us, so that's interesting. Within regards to the earlier comment about them wanting you to branch out and get more friends and all that. Yeah, my guess is if they're really a narcissist, they're up to something. So they want alone time for some sort of reason. So either they're cheating or they're up to something. And I know it sounds really paranoid, like, but it's true. So yeah, and excuse my outfit. I was hoping you guys weren't gonna see my pants, but I put on my pajama pants, and I so it's like business on top, you know, comfy on the bottom. Ghost Hunter says, Dana, are you ever afraid that either Jack or Steve will get angry with you and try to hurt you for talking about them, or do you think they just don't care? I don't worry about them trying to hurt me, but keep in mind I also live 26 hours away from them, and they both are very concerned about their public image. You know, I think they might, I wouldn't be surprised if they surface if my channel keeps getting bigger. I think it'll be a matter of time before they figure out what's going on. I don't know. I'll be kind of curious to see how that pans out. When I started my channel, I've never said anybody's last names. I'm not out. I don't want to create, and my goal is not to create drama. My goal was just to tell my story. So I wouldn't, you know, honestly, I don't know. Like I've thought about what I would do if they were to like try to sue me or whatever. But I guess I tell myself, I'm like, you know what? This is my story. Like, and I highly do not recommend, do not do what I do. Really in general, like in life. That's probably a good rule of thumb. Just like do the opposite of everything that I really have done, and you'll probably be fine. But you know, I do wonder if they'll surface and try to do something like, you know, sue me or whatever. But at that point, I would just be like, let's go. Let's go. You want to play? Let's play. And I would be more than happy. I would blow this out of the water and would take this to court and would just absolutely run with all of the press for it. So I would make it work for me and for my message about a kind of you know, narcissistic abuse awareness. So I embrace it. I don't have anything to be embarrassed about. They do. So, you know, whatever. Like they should have thought about that before they acted like total shitbags. So, whatever. But no, I'm not worried about them coming after me because I live, like I said, I live 26 hours away. Wayne asks, are narcissists known to become violent to the point of murder? Yes. Yes, they can. And they do not think twice about it because they feel totally justified in doing everything that they do. So they can be very dangerous very quickly. You know, a good example of this would be Scott Peterson, Jodi Arias. Trying to think of some more people. I had mentioned Bill Cosby in a couple of videos. I guess he hasn't been found guilty. I had thought he had, so we'll kind of, you know, leave him out of it until the jury's fully out. But Bernie Madoff, well, he's probably more of a sociopath, and he hasn't killed anybody. So maybe that's a terrible example. So never mind. But uh, when I was working at the domestic violence shelter, we had to watch a ton of training videos, and many of them were about abusive people that murdered. There was one video in particular that was ugh, Toxic Relationships No More says a woman on the NPD Facebook channel was murdered last month in front of her two babies. Great. That is freaking awful. Oh my gosh. I had no idea that that happened. Wow, wow. Um, so yeah, one of the videos that I saw when I was working at the domestic violence shelter was of a woman giving an interview to a reporter. This was, I think, like a decade or so ago, and I want to say this was somewhere in Europe. And they were walking through a park in the middle of the day, and she was talking to this reporter about her story. And her former partner came out of nowhere and at point blank range opened fire and killed her right in front of the reporter on camera in broad daylight in a park. So this is that kind of stuff is why I tell people like you don't know what a person's capable of. You have to go with your gut instinct. If you think you're in danger, go, just always err on the side of caution. And if you've got to do what you've got to do because your life really could be at stake. So, and it's one of those things because people will tell me all the time, they're like, well, but in my state, we can't carry mace or we can't carry a gun or we can't do certain things or XYZ. And, my take on it is you need to do what you need to do to stay safe. I am more of the err on the side of caution, beg for forgiveness, don't ask for permission kind of thing because you're not dealing with balanced people who are playing by the rules. So do what you need to do. Realize that your friends and family, even the police, even people at a domestic violence shelter might not understand what this person's capable of. So like your situation best and you've got to go with your gut instinct. Wow. Sarah says, my mom was a narcissist. She tried to murder me when I was 15. She wanted to kill herself and didn't see any reason why I should get to live after she was gone. I am only here because I fought. I am so sorry that you went through that. How scary. And I'm glad that you can see that your mother is a narcissist and I hope that you realize that her behavior is not a reflection of you or your self-worth or any of that. It's a reflection of her and she's not a logical balanced person. So Candy says, yes, they will do anything to protect that fake image. So yeah, this is the whole Scott Peterson kind of thing, right? So it's like, well, he had this he had Amber Fry. He had his mistress on the side. He wanted this new life. He couldn't get out of it without looking like a total dirtbag because here he would be leaving his pregnant, Lacey, who was what, like 8 months, 9 months pregnant at the time. He couldn't leave her. And Amber, I think, was kind of pushing for them to move forward in their relationship. And so the only way he could get out of that with saving face was to kill his wife and then make it look like he's the victim in all of this, right? Like the grieving husband. It's disgusting. G. Marie says, Dana, what do you think of restraining orders? I've heard it isn't effective because it provokes a violent abuser. It totally depends on the abuser. So if they already have a history of, well, you know what? I'm going to say if they already have a history of violence, I was going to say it can make it worse, but that's not even like a fail safe. It just depends. So abusive people, they are driven by power and control over their victim and power and control over the situation. Now, here's the thing. Abusive people don't realize that. So if you were to talk to an abusive person, they think that they're the victim. They don't realize that they're doing anything wrong. And, they feel totally justified in whatever actions they take. And so if you were to ask them, oh, well, they're trying to get power and control over me or whatever, they're going to be like, you're nuts. What are you talking about? That's not me. There's no acknowledgement for them of what's going on. So, when abusive people become abusive, like I said, they feel justified in doing so. And because they don't attach to people like the rest of us do, there's this mindset of, you know, kind of like, you belong to me. Like, you belong to me. I'm done with you. So they just get rid of people. And it's there's not that and like oh, what's Casey Anthony, kind of a thing. Even though she was found not guilty, I think, I think she, like, hands down, in my opinion, like, hands down, she did that. So that's the kind of, like, she went out partying like the night her daughter went missing, and she was doing belly, belly shots and all this stuff like that. That's that level of problem solved, and then you just go out clubbing with your friends. That's like the narcissist's mindset. Like, they just there's nothing there. There's no attachment. They don't care. There's no grieving process. There's no nothing. So very unpredictable behavior, and you just don't know. I was scared of both Jack and Steve. You know, I still lived when I found out everything about Jack. I moved out. I was about 2 hours away. I was far enough away that I didn't think it was going to be an issue, but I was scared for a long time, because I realized that he wasn't who he said he was, that he was just this con artist, and I didn't know what else was a lie. It was very, you know, disconcerting, and I just didn't know how, like, deep things went. So I was really scared. Even though he, like I said, he never did anything. But I'd had that feeling for a while that something was off, because I had been sick for a long time when we were living together. And I really do think that he was trying to poison me. So, you don't know. It's kind of like Munchausen by proxy, right? So that's a great example of how narcissists hurt people for attention. So, Munchausen syndrome, it's the whole, oftentimes it's the mother, but it could be the father, but it's generally the mother, who is making their children sick, or claiming that their children are sick, and taking them to the doctor, and maybe even having, like, exploratory surgery, and, like, or maybe even beating them, or poisoning them, or doing things to them to get them to go into the hospital, just so they can get attention. So these people are not well. Like, very, very, you don't know. Very unpredictable. Um, yeah, very disturbing. Toxic Relationship says, I swore my narcissist was trying to poison me with antifreeze. She loved the forensic shows and would tell me how they could have gotten away with it. Yeah, that's really unsettling. It was weird. So in my situation, I didn't I just didn't feel good. And I couldn't figure out why I wasn't feeling good. I thought my situation, I thought it was a propane leak for a while. I thought it was maybe altitude sickness. I thought it was grief. I thought it was depression. Um, I just didn't know what was wrong with me for, like, the longest time. And it wasn't until I was at the shelter one day, and somebody had mentioned, like, hey, did you ever think that maybe he was trying to poison you? And when they said that, it was like everything made sense, because he did like 99% of the cooking, and brought me coffee in bed every single morning. And everything began adding up. Like, oh, he was really after me. He thought I was going to get all of this money from a divorce settlement, and from the sale of these rental properties. And it turned out I pretty much walked away from everything. There was no big divorce settlement. The rental properties, most of them we broke even on. And so there was, and he was very, very upset at the tail end. One of the last things that Jack told me was, Dana, where's all the money? And then that was when I kind of was like, what? Like, oh, oh, I did not see that coming. Like, how did I misread this whole situation? Just wild, wild. Okay, Melanie's here. Zero is here. Um, Pepper Unkempt is here and she says, yes, the abusers rely on our silence. Abuse continues when we don't speak out on it. Yes, that's exactly true. Abuse happens in isolation, and, um, it's really tough because they don't ever think that they're the problem, or they very, very, very rarely think they're the problem. Um, yes, Sarah says, what I hate is when their flying monkeys attack you when you break your silence. Yeah, and that's again, that's like a lot of cognitive dissonance for them. And plus a lot of them don't see it. Even so, like if it's family, right? So if you've got, for example, your situation, if your mother's a narcissist, you have maybe siblings or other relatives that see that it's a problem. People are really funny when it comes to abuse. They kind of think like, oh no, that's just Sharon, or whatever her name, your mom's name is. That's just Sharon, and she's just difficult. She had a really bad childhood and she's a recovering alcoholic. That's just her. And they put up with this, and they don't hold the person accountable because they don't really think that everybody has their own idea of what abuse is. And generally, for a lot of people, the idea is that women can't be abusers, that men are abusers, and that women are victims. And so it doesn't compute for a lot of people that a mother could actually be physically abusive, or emotionally or verbally or anything to their children. It's really frustrating. So Asia asks, "What are flying monkeys?" So flying monkeys are. Hold on a second. Let me stop the scrolling here. Um, yes, flying monkeys. It's from the Wizard of Oz, and they were those really creepy monkeys, and they did the bidding of the Wicked Witch. And so normal people are often very easily turned into flying monkeys, and it's because narcissists and other forms of manipulative people, they really oftentimes believe their own lies, and so they'll make themselves out to be the victim of the situation, and the victim of their real victim. And so they'll spin things around. So let's say, if let's say they've stolen money from you, and they have been, hitting you and calling you names and gaslighting and the whole nine. If you go to leave them, then they start what's called a smear campaign. So now they start telling friends and family and coworkers and people around town how you stole money from them, how you hit them, how you've been manipulating them, and how they're the victim. And because they believe their own lies, they oftentimes they are very, very convincing, and they fool court systems, they fool judges, they fool attorneys. They're really good at just being very, very convincing. And so a lot of really well-intentioned people think, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe, the victim. I can't believe she or he did that." And then they start kind of giving you the stink eye, or they can easily be recruited into doing things that they might not even normally do. So the abusive person might be like, that crazy bitch, she's trying to ruin my life, and she, freaking broke my windshield. She threw a rock through my windshield, when really they threw the rock through their own windshield. Like, these people are nuts. Like, they will do whatever. So they might have done all kinds of things. And so now these other people are like, well, I can't believe, she did that. And then they'll kind of start this like lynch mob after the victim. And the victim, is, or they'll say stories that the victims, it's generally that their smear campaign is generally that the victim is some form of like crazy or bipolar or addict or an alcoholic, or neglectful parent or neglectful spouse, kind of thing. That's kind of what they're telling people, or the narcissist, or abusive, or somehow, they make themselves out to be the victim of things. So Wayne says, so are you saying that you should confront them about the abuse? Because I was told they felt like I was attacking them, and I am a pretty easygoing team player type person. Um, so I, it depends. It depends because there's different levels of narcissists, and there's different types of, and again, like the terminology aside, like there's different levels of kind of problematic behavior, right? And it's hard to get through to people if they're not willing to own any part of their behavior. So you can confront them on it, but if you're not getting anywhere, to me, that's kind of just a big exercise in futility, and you're screaming into the wind, because you could even have it in a text message where they said, I cheated on you, right? And you could say, like, look, you said you cheated on me. And they're like, I never wrote that. You just faked that. I mean, they will deny things that they did. So it's like trying to nail jello to a wall. Like, there's very rarely ever accountability on their end. Which it's how do you move forward with somebody that has no accountability for their behavior? The answer is you really don't. So, I if you're in a situation where you have to have a really highly manipulative person in your life and they totally lack accountability, I would say just save your energy and just realize what you're dealing with. To me, it's kind of along the same lines of, if you have a person in your family that has Alzheimer's, like, you can try all day long to get them into your reality, but that is just going to really, it's going to annoy you, and it's going to frustrate them. So I'm a big fan of kind of meeting people where they are and just saving your energy and kind of picking and choosing your battles. So it's kind of the same with that Alzheimer's person, right? Like, you understand this is kind of where their level of understanding is, and I need to adjust and adapt to that situation. To expect them to be able to come into my reality, it's not going to work, right? It's the same thing with, you've got a person with a personality disorder like that, with like narcissism. Um, you know, to me, that's just a big waste of energy. So just kind of just accepting kind of what is, and realizing they're highly manipulative, and just anticipating as much as you possibly can, where, you just know, like, hey, this person's going to lie, they're going to cheat, they're going to manipulate, they're going to do whatever. So when they do that, you're not caught off guard. You're like, well, of course they came home late, and of course they stole money, and of course they did all these things, because that's what they do. And then once you quit being surprised by the bad behavior and like fully accept it, then you're no longer upset by it, because it's like, that is what is. Like, just sort of like having that relative with Alzheimer's, right? Like, you're not upset by it, you're not frustrated, you fully accept it, and you realize this is just where this person is. And you just kind of, just do what you can, and then let the rest go. It's not worth getting frustrated or whatever about. I hate to even compare Alzheimer's to narcissism, so I feel kind of bad about that. So I'm just saying, like, I feel kind of bad about that. But I hope you guys can see kind of that analogy of what I'm going for there. Okay, Leah says, hi, I grew up in a narcissistic home. I have been a codependent from a young age. I am struggling to find myself. I don't know who I am. So, excuse me, hold on. Really, really valid thing there, right? So, like, a lot of codependency does tend to start at a really young age. And so some signs that a person is codependent at a young age is, codependent children tend to come across as very like mature children. So they're the ones that are the peacekeepers. They're the ones that are like little adults, because kind of for whatever reason they have to be an adult. So either they grew up in a home where there was a lot of trauma, or there was a lot of neglect, or there was addiction, or they had a mentally ill or a severely personality disordered parent, or yeah, I said addiction, or, alcoholism, these kinds of. So they basically had a parent who, for whatever reason, was not emotionally available, kind of at the end of the day. And so the child that becomes codependent had to basically be parent to either themselves or their siblings or both, and possibly even to their parents. And because of this, they really do lose touch with themselves. So this has been kind of this ongoing thing with me too. This has been this journey that I've been on. I'm going to make a note to myself because I think it'd be fun to do a 30-day challenge on this. So what I have been finding that works for me, because it's been like, I feel like Alice in Wonderland. Like, it's really been crazy. The more I kind of get into all of this and really start putting the pieces together, really realizing like, it's just like my world is coming into focus. It's just wild. So for example, with the whole, like, you don't know yourself, here's something that maybe you can identify with too. I had been really used to saying, for Christmas or birthdays, if people asked me, especially my parents, hey, what would you like? Me just saying, oh, I'm fine. I don't need anything. Like, I don't want anything. Or I don't know. That was probably one of my biggest answers for a lot of things across the board. I don't know. And I realized that and I honestly believed that answer. Like, I really believed that I just didn't want anything for my birthday or for Christmas, or that I really just didn't know. Like, I didn't know what I wanted. And the truth is, I think deep down I did know. I was just afraid it was going to be yet another disappointment, yet another rejection, yet another time for hurt feelings, yet another letdown, kind of a thing. And so I just decided it was easier to not get hurt. It was just easier to play like I don't know than it was to actually say, yeah, I'd really like kind of whatever, and then not get it, or, get it, like, well, generally, like, not get it. Not get it, or get some sort of like weird version of it way late, or some sort of kind of thing like that. So, or be told like that, money's tight and they can't, just, it's, yeah, like, just frustrating. So it takes time getting to know yourself, and that's just the weirdest feeling. So I'm 38, and it's so weird for me to kind of just to not know, like, to not know. I can't even tell you. I've had the hardest time, like, decorating my house. I was telling a coworker today at work, we were talking about this. I woke up in the middle of the night last night, wide awake at like 2:30 in the morning, and was like on, watching all these videos on YouTube, and was on Amazon. I was looking around at area rugs on Amazon like 3 in the morning, and I was telling my coworker, I said, I couldn't tell what I even liked. And how strange of a feeling that was. Like, I don't feel like I really have a sense of style. Not just with clothing, because you guys know I'm not like a fashionista. I wear like the same clothes all the time. But with my house, like, I just, there's no real kind of sense of style there. And it's because I really struggle with knowing who I am. And I was telling her before, when I owned homes, when I was married, I would decorate the house more like according to a theme. It wasn't what that sounds so weird, but it wasn't what I liked. It was sort of like, oh, we live in the mountains. We'll decorate this house like a mountain house. Like, oh, we live in New Mexico. We'll decorate this house like a New Mexico style, like Pueblo house. But none of it felt like me. It just felt like I was decorating, like, model homes. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. And I have stressed myself out to no end. With stuff that I think most people just kind of take for granted, like a hairstyle. For the longest time, I had no bangs, and my hair was just straight and dark. And that was kind of it. Like, this was really, kind of edgy for me to cut bangs. I just really played everything safe. I just didn't have a real solid sense of self. So what I have been doing with all of this and trying to identify a sense of self has been getting more in tune with how I'm feeling. And so I would encourage you to do the same. So asking yourself, on a scale of fulfillment, from 0 being not fulfilled or not enjoyable at all to 10 being really enjoyable, really fulfilling, to ask yourself how certain things feel to you. Everything, everything. So think about your clothes. How do your clothes fit? How comfortable are they on that scale of 0 to 10? Is this a 6 for you, or is it a 9 for you, and why? For example, like this little bird of this, my little peace guy. I love this guy. This is up there. This is a 10. I really like this little guy. And maybe the number kind of changes, depending on what mood you're in, but it's probably not going to change a whole lot. So, and this is not an exact science. This is just kind of for you to get a ballpark idea of getting to know yourself, really. Again, like asking yourself any little thing, do I love these glasses? Like these are a 10 for me. What else? My pillows. I really like these pillows. How does your job feel? How do certain friendships feel? How do you feel first thing in the morning? How do you feel last thing at night? How do you like the lighting in your house or in your office? And how do you feel around certain coworkers? And how do you feel, is your house, how do you feel in your environment? And getting more in tune with that ongoing sense of how you're feeling. And the more I think you click into that, the more you start realizing what feels good. And what feels good tends to be, it's a representation, it's a signal of who you are. And so basically what I'm saying in a nutshell is just move towards what feels good. And as long as it's empowering, right? Like as long as it's like empowering to you or somebody else. I don't want you to be like, well, I really like heroin. No, like that's not empowering, right? So identifying like what really feels good. And maybe if you do, and this I think could work too, if a person does have an addiction or behavior that they're trying to stop, to pay attention to how you're feeling. Let's say, for example, if you really so for me, for the longest time, I loved Diet Coke. I was addicted to Diet Coke, but I had this like love-hate relationship with it. So right before I would have one, I didn't like the fact that I was addicted to it. So it didn't feel good. I felt it was like on a scale of 0 to 10, it was a 0. And then I would drink one, and in the moment it felt like this is a 10. But then right after that, I'm like, this is a freaking 0. Like this stuff is a chemical shitstorm. Like I don't want to be putting this in my body. But I had a hard time weaning myself off of that. So I think when you're trying to slow down an addiction of any kind, whether it's smoking or overeating or, junk food or Diet Coke or kind of whatever, paying attention to how you feel like before, during, and after. And the more you get in tune with that, and especially the more you start doing things that feel good, it's like it's crowding out all of the negative. So the more things that you're putting in your life that feel like a 9 or a 10, all of that, everything else, like everything that's an 8 or less, is just going to fall by the wayside. You're not even going to have to expend a lot of energy to try to figure all of this out. Like it's just going to come, it's just going to flow because you're so focused on how you're feeling and you're so wanting to feel good. So I hope that helps. And I'll be curious to see as you're progressing through this, how, kind of just the progress that you're making and what aha moments you have in all of this. 'Cause I really think that most codependent people struggle with that because we tend to always put our needs last. Wayne says, great, Dana. Now I feel really guilty about that diet root beer soda I had today. Womp womp. Yeah, I do. I will drink a root beer. There's a root beer place at the farmer's market during the summer that has a fantastic root beer. And I will get a couple of those every summer, but that's about it. Martine says, yeah, Diet Coke is dangerous. The artificial sweeteners are crazy dangerous. Better just to take the sugar. I completely agree, but I was addicted to that artificial sweetener. Like, I wasn't even drinking it to save calories. Like, I was addicted to Diet Coke for that taste. God, now I want a root beer. Everybody's talking about root beer. Toxic Relationship says, it won't let me post a link, but Google search man admits to shooting woman to death in front of their two young children. I don't know why it won't let you post a link. That might be something on my settings. I'll have to check that, but it's nothing that I did. So very strange. I will Google that. And you said it was she ran the Facebook page? Yeah, it's it just it just makes me, of course, obviously, like, it really really saddens me, but it just makes me so angry that level of disregard, because not only did he take a life, but talk about the trauma that you're putting your kids through. Like, oh, she was a member of the Facebook page. Wow. And she was afraid her husband would do that, and he did. So again, this kind of goes back to you know if you feel like you're in danger, you probably are. And still Prill asks, can a benign slash overt narcissist change? Here's my thing. I used to really walk a firm line about narcissists not being able to change, and the reason, personally, I think that people really by and large tend to not change. Like, people tend to just kind of be, if anything, with time, we all kind of tend to be more set in our ways. So most people by and large don't change. They really tend to just become more of what they already are. But with all of that aside, I think I don't want people to listen to me or really anybody else when it comes to what another person is capable of doing or not doing. So I think the best way to tell if you or anybody else is actually capable of change is to see if they change. So, because narcissism, there's a spectrum of it. So if a person has a sincere desire to change and they have accountability and responsibility for their actions, then change is possible. But I would encourage the partner of this person to have a deadline in mind. So have a date, have a line in the sand where you have an idea of, okay, these are what kind of changes I need to see have happen by a certain date. And if those changes aren't there, then that's your sign that now it's time for you to walk away. Because here's the thing. If you and I've seen this happen many times. So a person might take their partner in for therapy. You get one therapist that says, yes, this person's a narcissist. They will not change. Then a year later, or maybe a month later, the narcissist decides, well, I'm going to get a second opinion. And then they go to somebody else. And that other person says they're not a narcissist, right? Well, so now the victim's like, well, I don't know who to believe. Like, I'm not even sure there's really a problem in my marriage. Maybe I'm the problem. Like, they really don't know what's going on. I think that's really, really common. So it's hard to get, again, you can ask a dozen different mental health professionals and you can probably get at least a dozen different answers as far as personality disorder diagnoses go. And there's a wide variety of reasons as to why that is. Like, some therapists might not want to get sued, right? They might not want to be like, well, I don't want to say that this person's really got this personality, so I don't want this trouble. Or they're not 100% confident in their skills with diagnosing, or they might not normally work with personality disorders. or you know, they might be easily manipulated by, and it's easy for them to do because narcissists and sociopaths are really manipulative people, so they might truly not see it. So there's lots of different reasons as to why you might be getting different diagnoses from different mental health professionals. That's why I want to empower you guys to maintain your power and control. So even if you get 20 different people that say we see no problem with this person's behavior, if you see a problem with it, if it's a problematic behavior for you, then that's all that matters. So it doesn't matter if this other person might not be a narcissist or may or may not have the capacity to change. What matters is if it's problematic for you. What matters is where is your line in the sand, and is this person meeting, is their behavior modifying to the point where you're okay with staying? And if it's not, then you need to go. So if you're not married to a person, I definitely wouldn't continue a relationship with somebody hoping that they're going to change. Like that talk about an exercise in futility. So if you're dating a person that you're like, I think this person might be a narcissist, or at a minimum, this person lies and cheats and maybe manipulates and has this other problematic behavior. If that's the case, then the whole purpose of dating is it's a big screening process to see, is this person what I'm looking for in a life partner? And so if you're seeing deal breaker behavior, because that's what that stuff, ideally, that's what that stuff is it's deal breaker behavior. So if you're seeing that kind of stuff, that's red flag behavior. That's character stuff. And like, you don't want to it's not fair to you or the other person to be like, well, now we're in a relationship, now I'm going to expect you to change, right? Even though they might not have shown this side of themselves for a while. So all any of us ever have control over is power and control over ourselves and over our reactions and actions to things. And so, so that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Let's see, lots and lots of comments here. Let me scroll up. Martine says, I hear you, Dana, but my father won't change. He keeps borrowing money and not paying it back. But I can't just walk away from him. He's my father, and I have no support system. It's a tough call. Well, I think, this it is a tough call. So it goes back to, I think, awareness and acceptance of what is. So if okay, I think first of all, if you're part of the awareness and acceptance is getting that word borrowing money out of the term, out of your mind, because he's not borrowing money. You're basically giving him money. So just either you make peace with that or you quit giving him money. So and then realizing that if he's your only support system, then that's really not much of a support system, that you're basically having to buy it, right? Like you're basically having to pay him to be your support system. So, ouch, like that's a really harsh realization, but realizing what is. So you're like, okay, this is my dad, and he doesn't pay me back, so I'm not loaning him any money. If I give him money, I know I'm going to give it to him knowing the fact that I'll never see it again. And so then that way you're not frustrated and upset. You realize you're never going to see that money again. So maybe not, quote unquote, loaning him more money than you can comfortably afford to never get back. And, again, I would encourage you to find a support system that's truly supportive. Because it doesn't sound like that's, kind of like that's what that is. But that's, it's your call. It's not, I know it's not easy. So, let's see. Interesting. Pepper says, my ex-husband left a bad impression on our daughter's first counselor, so we had to change. He wanted to, quote unquote, start over and behave better. All fake. He's acting totally the opposite with the new counselor. So That's not surprising. And yeah, Suzanne says, Pepper, these people are actors. Every day is a new play. And that's the truth. And so this is why manipulative people tend to get worse with time, because they manipulate day in and day out. And us non-manipulative people are so far behind the ball on this. Like, it's sort of like the difference between us learning how to swim going up against an Olympic swimmer. Like, they know what they're doing. We can't even try to outthink or out manipulate or out con them, because they're constantly refining their game every single day, all day long. It's how they get through life. It's how they cope with stress. It's how they do anything and everything. And so yeah, I could see how he realized with this one therapist, oh, she's on to me. So now we need to go to another one, and now I need to be this whole different person. It's just they're continually adapting to the situation. So if that's the case, with a new counselor, I would recommend that you pull her aside if you haven't already, if she's not on to kind of what's going on, and say, I really feel like my ex-husband has a personality disorder of some kind. And, you know, he was totally different with the last therapist. This was a lot of the stuff that we saw going on. Here's the other thing too, with a lot of mental health professionals, they don't like it when people self-diagnose. And so if you go in saying, well, I really think that my husband or my wife is a narcissist, there's a lot of ego that comes. It's sort of like going to the doctor and being like, well, I really think that it's, I've slipped the disc, or I think it's my appendix or whatever. And there's just kind of this, and it's not all of them, but a lot of them have kind of this ego of, well, who are you to think that you know what's going on in your own life? Like, right? So I see this a lot with therapists. So they don't like it when it's sort of like, that's my territory. That's my job to diagnose. You really don't know. And so you don't know if you're kind of potentially triggering somewhat of an ego injury there with a therapist. So I think you're better off kind of phrasing it in a way of, this is kind of the behavior that I'm seeing. I was wondering if you could just kind of rule out any possibility that he or she might have a personality disorder. I'm kind of thinking that this person's really narcissistic. I would be curious to know what you think. And it sucks that you have to kind of tap dance around that, but I think you're going to get a lot further than telling the therapist what you think is going on. Because I think very few of them are actually going to be okay with that. And I know that sounds paranoid, but it is what it is. It's been my experience. Interesting. Dan says, I talked to a counselor once and they asked me why it was important to me to know if I was a borderline. It's interesting. There's pros and cons to labels. And it depends, and every therapist has a different approach when it comes to these things. So, I'm kind of on the fence with labels too. Like, labels can really give a person a lot of validation, and they can really give a lot of clarity to kind of what they're up against. But in certain ways, it can also be kind of limiting. And so, it just, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with labels myself. Kind of like I said, I go back and forth because obviously, like, this is narcissist support. So again, I see the validation for the labels. It gave me a ton of clarity in my life to know the words, narcissist and sociopath or antisocial. So I can see where people are coming from with wanting that label. But if I were you, I would be very kind of hesitant to take on anybody's, kind of limiting labels for yourself. Because if you are borderline, then, there's a great therapy out there called DBT. It stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. It's basically mindfulness therapy. And it's fantastic. It's frankly, it's something that we should all go through. It's at a young age. Like it's fantastic. It's all about like emotional regulation and, mindfulness and being present in the moment and slowing things down and really great stuff. So just kind of know that. So Martine says, I hear you, Dana, but my father won't change. He keeps borrowing money and not paying it back. I already read that. I can't walk away from him. He's my father. Um, let me. Yes, Candy says emotional abuse will put you in a hospital or drive you to suicide. Yes, it will. It does to a lot of people. So here's some other signs that you can tell. We talked a little bit earlier about the beginning signs of problematic behavior, right? So beginning signs are that initial feeling that something's off, like, huh, that's kind of weird. Did I just hear that? Like, followed by is it them or is it me? Like, where's the problem here? Followed by justification, minimization, denial, blame, these kinds of things. Further down the road, then it progresses to embarrassment, shame, guilt, depression, anxiety, and if it's left untreated, then it can lead to death. Either it leads to suicide, it can lead to murder, it can lead to a slow death of drugs and alcohol, even prescription pills. It leads to, kind of best case scenario, it leads to a very disempowering, unfulfilling life. And so it's really, really, really important for us to be able to spot problematic behavior early on and then to get out of there. And it's really hard for a lot of people to get out of there. This kind of goes back to the whole empty buckets thing. But if we're feeling if we develop this attitude of scarcity, right, where we think, well, things could be worse, and this person, you're getting some sort of need met by staying there, but you're not really feeling fulfilled. Like maybe this relationship is like a 3 out of a 10, maybe a 6 out of 10 kind of a thing. It's hard. It can be hard for people to walk away from that, especially if they've had nothing but relationships that are like a 3 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10, right? On that scale of fulfillment. So, and then, again, you throw kids into the mix, there's, finances that have been combined. You have a lot of, other factors as to why people stay in these relationships. But if you are feeling like you can't leave a relationship for whatever reason, like you've got kids, or you've got finances, or kind of lack of finances, or you feel like you really can't leave. If you absolutely have to stay, then I would encourage you to try to find peace in every single day. I know, and I hate to even, I want to be able to support people in whatever decision they make. And I get that it's not always easy for people to leave. I would encourage you guys to always take the most empowering route possible, and to ideally, and kind of whatever that means. Like this is not my life, this is your life, and so you need to make these decisions for you. But there are places out there that can help. But okay, I'm getting messages here. Dana, help still prill. Okay, let me go see, what have I missed. Still prill says, I have a 2-year-old. My parents are the least emotionally abusive, and I have no support system. Okay, I'm trying to decide if I should stay with my husband. They said, Dana, you finally got the question. Yes, I'm here. I'm reading. I'm trying to catch up. Still Prill, what Yes. Let's repeat your question. Um, I'm guessing it has to do with emotional abuse. I'm scrolling up here trying to. Okay. I'm 11 years of emotional abuse, not physical abuse. Okay. Well, abuse is abuse is abuse. And I think if you ask anybody that's gone through any type of abusive relationship, that they will say that the emotional and psychological abuse is the worst, because bruises heal quickly, and emotional and psychological abuse can take a while to get through. So she says, I am just now realizing I'm a codependent. So, okay, awareness is always the first step in any type of change. And so now that you realize, this is kind of what's going on and kind of what codependency is all about. And, yes, Dan, great follow up to that. He says bruises heal and are visible. Yes. So that's the thing. Physical abuse, it's almost more validating. People are like, oh, I can see, like, and I know it sounds so weird if a person hasn't gone through this, but it's sort of like, yeah, oh, I see, there's a problem because now I have a black eye, or there's a problem because now I have a broken bone. So, but I will say, like, even then, and I've seen this before at the domestic violence shelter, it's that slippery slope of, well, okay, he hit me, but he punched me in the arm and it's not that big of a bruise. So it's still kind of a slippery slope there. But let's get back to still pro. Let's get back to your situation. So what are your, this is a decision that only you can make. And if you're saying that you don't have a support system at all, have you are you familiar with how to do a safety plan? Let me see if I can link to that really quick. Let me go to my site. So there's lots of different support groups out there. I have one on my website, and then I have one on Facebook, but like I said, there's lots. Sorry, trying to type and think and talk at the same time. There's lots of different support groups out there. I would highly recommend, if you're not already in a few, to consider getting in some. So those are really great sources of like validation and feedback and support, in all of this, because as you're going through this, it's really common and very understandable. I'm posting a link in the chat to how to do a safety plan. It's very, very easy to get confused and to kind of start questioning, like, are things this bad? Can he change? They often manipulate. There's the whole, I call it iChive way of manipulating that they do. It stands for isolation, charm, hope, intimidation, violence, and then kind of preying on emotions, which are generally fear, love, obligation, and guilt. So kind of knowing what you're up against, knowing what's common. Support groups are great for that because they can kind of reflect back to you what's going on. The safety plan will kind of go through with how to make preparations to leave if and when you decide to leave. So it's about kind of, erring on the side of caution, making copies of all important paperwork, getting a secret bank account, just kind of slowly planning on ways to leave. Even if you think that might be kind of, over the top, he hasn't been physically dangerous. Emotionally abusive people in general do not react well when they lose control over the situation, especially if it's control and their identity and kind of their public image all wrapped into one. And so it's you know, if he's losing the marriage and his child and kind of control over everything, then it's important to keep that in mind if you are planning on leaving, and then just always, always, always doing whatever you feel it needs to be the safest way to go. So there's pros and cons. I mean, there's pros and cons to leaving and to staying, and so it's not easy, but it's it, but it can be done. It can, people do it all the time, and you can start over, and there's neutral like third party places for spouses that do divorce an abusive partner, to where child support can go through them. You can have any type of like conversation can go through this like neutral third party. So there are options out there to kind of limit the contact and limit the abuse. So G Marie says always have a plan A, B, and C. I agree. Pepper says best time to move is when he's at work. Yes, and again, just kind of erring on the side of caution, because he's gonna go bananas most likely when he gets home if you move out when he's not there. So again, just not to scare you, but just to again like to deal with kind of, I am a big fan of like dealing with worst case scenario and then like working my way back, because if you kind of cling to hope with best case scenario and then things don't go as planned, then you're behind the ball trying to scramble and make sure that you're vulnerable, because then you haven't. And it's totally understandable as to why a person's not going to be thinking a few steps ahead, because this is a very confusing and a highly emotionally intense situation. So again, great comment by Pepper again. Yes, start documenting the abuse. Get witnesses, keep text messages, keep voicemails, keep emails. If you're having conversations, try to have some sort of paper trail, because they are incredibly manipulative. So document things with having other people around, or pictures or videos, or these kinds of things. You can get motion sensor cameras if you're concerned that he's going to be bothering your property, so you can hide them up in a tree or something, where they have these at like sporting goods stores for like wild game cameras or whatever. So they'll click on when there's movement, and so you can, doesn't they're not on all the time. So those would be some different ideas. um okay, let me scroll up here. um Okay, Melanie says, I understand the term hoovering, but my fiance tends to do it in a weird form. It's like he's practicing the no contact method on me, and I have to communicate with him based on our child. Is That sounds like the silent treatment to me. He's practicing the no contact method. Okay, I guess my other question would be is why is he your fiance? Um because this, and I'm not saying that from like a judgment place. I'm saying that from like a place of curiosity, because this people are on their best behavior before you get married. Like once that ring goes on, most people, you start really seeing true colors. And if he's already got problematic behavior now, and same with women, right? So if there's problematic behavior now, it's probably not going to get better after the marriage. So I highly, okay, You met ex-fiance. Okay, good, good. Um, yeah, that kind of what you're describing sounds more like the silent treatment, which a lot of people do silent treatment stuff, not just, flat out narcissists. I have a coworker like who does silent treatment stuff all the time, and and she's codependent. She just isn't comfortable being assertive with what's going on. Not saying that he's codependent. I'm just saying, like, other people. I get a lot of emails where people are like, you said this red flag, that if they say that they're in the military or have, or an entrepreneur, that they're a narcissist, and I'm an entrepreneur and I'm not a narcissist. And it's like, no, no, no. I did not say that. Like, narcissists tend to have grandiose stories about certain things, or they tend to, like, narcissists tend to do silent treatment, but not all people that do silent treatment are necessarily narcissists. It's sort of like saying, you know, um, all, all kittens are white, but not all, or all kittens are white and fluffy, but it's not the same as all things that are white and fluffy are kittens. Like, if that makes sense. M says, you guys here and on the forum have helped me so, so much. I'm moving on and learning so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm so glad. That's awesome. Yeah, it's really validating to be able to actually talk about this and shine a light onto um, abuse and kind of the different forms it takes. Because, like we were talking about earlier, emotional abuse, psychological abuse is really oftentimes very tricky to spot. It goes undetected for years, if not decades, and the victim often feels like it's their fault. So it's not an easy thing for most people to see. Dan says, this was my first experience with the live stream and chat, and I've really enjoyed it. That's awesome. I'm glad. And has anybody seen how I keep B major? I keep wanting to say be good. That's a different channel, which is interesting. I highly recommend that channel too. I think Be Good 4000. But yes, B major. I keep waiting for her to surface. So Still Pearl says he's probably telling everyone I'm crazy. Yeah, he probably is. That's what they do. And it's hard to kind of detach emotionally and to just realize, like, you're screaming into the wind by trying to prove that you're not crazy. And so they will often do that. They drive people to become crazy because their behavior is so flipping crazy making. And so it's totally normal to feel like frustrated and exhausted and just worn out and overwhelmed and angry and full of rage, and that it's not fair, and just this whole mix of, and just so frustrated that you could cry because other people don't see it and they don't get it. Even close friends and family, oftentimes have this idea. Everybody has this idea of, like, what an abusive person looks like or how they act. And so if your partner is not fitting their profile in their mind of what an abusive person looks like or acts like, then it doesn't register. And so I talk about this a lot. So people have this idea oftentimes that dangerous or destructive people look like Charles Manson, or that, they look like kind of the bad guy in the movie, like the husband in Sleeping with the Enemy, or the mother in Mommy Dearest, right? And oftentimes, well, if you've seen the movie Mommy Dearest, that's a great example, because I forget who was that story based on? Famous actress. It was supposedly a real life story written by her daughter. She was the daughter of a narcissistic mother. And so out in public, her mother was this very I want to say it was Katharine Hepburn, but I don't think that's correct. That out in public, her mother was this very well loved, well received celebrity, but behind closed doors, Joan Crawford, that's who it was. Behind closed doors, she was just this absolute witch of a mother. But people don't see that side of that person, and that's what's so crazy making for everybody else, for the victim for so long. Um, yeah. Melanie says it took me 2 years to recover from his crazy making and to add the people he had backing him up, supporting his crazy making. So yes, very, very common. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing the stuff that people will come to you with, and like, yeah, that didn't happen, or it didn't happen that way, and it's kind of to add insult to injury, right? Like, it just kind of think going through an abusive relationship is bad enough, and now you're getting abused by the flying monkeys, and then there's kind of this, oftentimes, this added level of re-victimization, kind of like the third wave, right? So you have the victimization by the abusive person, you have the victimization by the flying monkeys, then you have the re-victimization, oftentimes by like therapists and friends and family who don't understand. So it's you know, that's kind of how things tend to go down. Don't get overwhelmed or discouraged or saddened by that. Again, this is all about kind of just awareness, acceptance, and then anticipation. So if you're planning on leaving a relationship, realizing that other people, if they, and really, unless they've gone through something like this, and even then, they oftentimes forget, because it's that cognitive dissonance, it's the fog of cognitive dissonance. And once that fog lifts, it's sort of like anybody. If you've ever gone through any or made any type of, just, decision that didn't make sense, an addiction or anything, once that fog lifts and you're thinking clearly, it can be sometimes hard to really empathize and understand where your thinking was when you were kind of caught up in that. And it's the same with an abusive relationship. So a lot of people just don't understand it. And it can be, this is why I really recommend support groups, because it's oftentimes a lot of people that have been there, they've done that, and they get it. So it's important, especially, you know, you know, especially if, I think especially too for men, because women, not that abuse goes, detected necessarily on a regular basis with women, because it oftentimes doesn't, but it really goes undetected with men. So with men, it's important that they can find a good support group where there's ideally other men, because men have their own set of issues when they're going through abuse, and recovering from it. So it's important that people, this is why I encourage people to find a group, join a couple different groups, so you can, find one that resonates with you the most. Because it's just like anything else, it can be real trial and error. So, and still, keep in touch, and let us know how things are going, and just know that you're not alone in all of this. There's, like I said, there's lots of different groups on Facebook. For anybody else out there that's thinking about joining some support groups on Facebook but they're nervous about it, you can always you can do a fake Gmail, email, and then join Facebook with that fake email, and then create this fake account. If you are going to do that, I will tell you, generally send the moderators, send a message to the people, the moderators of the group, or to the group, and let them know that you just signed up for Facebook. Because I know for us, we're getting so many new members. We get probably, like, I don't even know, maybe 30 or 40 a day. And when we're going through them, we're really suspect of people that have like one picture and then like no friends, and they just joined Facebook, and they have like, they're trying to join all these different groups, because it can look like spam, and so you might not get approved, or accepted into these groups. And if you're not, like, that's why. So let the group people know kind of what's going on. Oh, that's all. That's cool. I'm glad. Still Pearl says, Dana, thank you. I've been watching your videos almost a year, and last week was the first time I had the courage to speak up. So that is, that warms my heart that you have finally got into the place where you're feeling comfortable with opening up. And so I'm really glad that we have been able to make you comfortable, and to connect with you, and to kind of identify that, yeah, there's some stuff here that's not going on, that's problematic in your relationship, and that is going on, is what I meant to say, that is going on and that is problematic. So thank you, thank you for trusting us with that. I know that's a big deal to step forward and to say, like, yeah, this is a problem, this is what I've got going on in my life. So okay, so now talking about narcissists on social media. I heard the just say shut down all social media and start over. It depends. It depends. I did not do that. But again, I ended up, moving 26 hours away. So there wasn't that issue really of, there was some hoovering from Steve after he moved, but excuse me, that ended shortly after that, because it was like, I think he kind of realized, like, this, she's not gonna move back, and it was kind of it was a waste of his energy to even try. So for me, I didn't feel the need to do all of that. I think for a lot of people, if they're staying in the same town, if they have to have communication, I would recommend doing, you need to do what you need to do to stay safe and sane. And so if you're feeling a lot of stress every time, you're going onto Facebook, or if you are getting messages from him or her, or they're flying monkeys on Instagram or Twitter or whatever you're on, I would say at a minimum, you could always get like duplicate accounts, like just fake accounts, and just befriend like your close friends on those fake accounts until kind of the drama with the ex dies down, and then go back to your original account. Or just start. I mean, a lot of people get to the place where they just want to start totally fresh. I mean, they'll get a brand new phone, they'll move, they'll some people even go so far as to change their name to try to get away from all of the chaos and drama and dysfunction. So let's see. Okay, good night, Pepper. Pepper signing off. Kevin says, yeah, he had to change the name of his SoundCloud account. Oh, that's nice, Candy. Candy says, still Pearl. I felt the same. I felt so unloved, but we are loved. And you are. And that's the thing. A lot of these relationships, the personal growth that comes from it is really digging deep and reconnecting with who you are, and learning to really know who you are, and then loving yourself. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it's so true. And like getting to that place where you know, you trust your judgment, and you know what makes you feel good, and you know what makes you feel bad, and you just that you love and you respect yourself, you treat yourself with value. Because really, there's no shortcut around that. Like, we all have to get to that place in order to have healthy standards and healthy boundaries, and keeping out problematic people. Because that's the solution to it. That's how you narc proof your life, is healthy standards, healthy boundaries. But that really comes from healthy self-esteem. And healthy self-esteem comes from having a healthy sense of self. And that just starts with knowing yourself, you know. So right. G Marie says, love myself. I wonder how that feels. LOL. I know, I'm still working at it. Yeah. So one of my exercises that I've been doing has been continually telling myself, like, how can I treat myself with value today? Because I think for a lot of us, it's feeling like kind of living a life that's like a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10 has become the new normal. And so we're just kind of used to not feeling good. Like it's seriously still amazing to me how the level of discomfort that I've just gotten used to living with across the board. Like, not even emotionally, but like physically, I mean, in every way possible, like physically, just stuff that I'm like, how did I not know that? Like wearing clothes that didn't fit, or just there were so many things in my life that like were just not working, but they had just become normal, and I hadn't realized how bad things were until I really began living with awareness of how I felt. It's really strange. Wayne says, Dana, do we have to become assholes to keep them at bay? No, I actually recommend the exact opposite technique, which is called gray rock. And gray rock is where you become as exciting and as reactive as a gray rock, which is to say, not at all. So you become just really boring. You don't talk about anything exciting. You don't, so you would just kind of really kind of boring small talk you'd make with somebody that you didn't know. Kind of on, the cashier at the grocery store. You talk about the weather, you talk kind of, you don't share any intimate details. You don't share anything that's going right with you. You don't share anything that's going right with the kids. You're kind of going out of your way to not make yourself a target, because narcissists are threatened by anybody else's success, even if it's their own children. They don't want to hear anything that's going good for other people because they just get threatened. They don't want to hear anything. They love to hear everything that's going bad for other people because they feed off of that. So you're just your best bet is to not evoke any emotion whatsoever. You're just kind of not reactive. If they try to provoke you, which they generally will, by just trying to either just kind of poking at you, trying to get your goat, or creating these false stories to get you upset, you just have to practice. Again, this goes back to kind of, the whole awareness, acceptance, anticipation, right? Awareness of this is a problematic person that has problematic behavior. Acceptance, they have problematic behavior. They're not changing anytime soon. Anticipation, they have problematic behavior. I'm going to anticipate this ahead of time. So I'm going to anticipate what I have power and control over, which is myself and my actions, my reactions. And so knowing what you're walking into to that way, you're not caught off guard. So if they say something that's really outrageous, or they ask for more money, or they kind of do whatever, you just kind of like, yeah, I'm really sorry. I don't have any money. And, or, boy, it's really too bad that happened. Or, you're as exciting as a gray rock. You're exciting as a kind of a cold bowl of oatmeal, right? Like you're just meh. And so once they realize they can't get a reaction out of you, they tend to drive on. Kevin says, she's made sure I've never had a date of any kind since she started. Well, and hopefully that will kind of, simmer down in time. These people are very, quote unquote, persistent. They don't like to lose, and they just have a huge, everything they do is driven by their ego. And so they play to win. And, they're just difficult people. They've difficult people with difficult ways of interacting with the world. Martine says, yeah, it's hard because, as I said, I don't believe my father is a narcissist. The money is the only abusive thing he does. Other than that, he's a totally kind and non-abusive man. That is tough. And, Martine, again, I would just go into it with realizing, for whatever reason, your dad just feels okay with, not paying you back. And so, I guess I would entertain the idea of, well, what would he do if you were to say that you don't have money? Like you can't loan him any more money, or, you're more than happy to loan him money once he pays you back because you can't afford to support both of you. So if he would not handle that well, if he would get upset, then, and he probably would, then it's not just the money thing, because that's, then you're kind of leading more into like it's manipulative, because he's lying and saying he's going to pay you back, and he doesn't. So, it's just, but again, there's Martine says, yeah, he seems to feel okay with that. How is that possible? I would feel so guilty if I were him. I think most people would feel so guilty, you know, but I don't know. I don't know. He's obviously justifying it some way in his mind. So it's kind of your call and on how to move forward with that. It's tough. Oh, Cecilia says, my grandmother is on her deathbed. I'm a wreck. I'm so sorry. What is. Yeah, Doug says, we were missing you, Cecilia. And she says, thank you, Doug. So, yeah, I'm sorry. That's a really intense past couple days has been going on. M says, it is 3:40 in the morning here in Ireland and I'm getting sleepy, but it's always nice. Oh, that's nice. But it's always nice to fall asleep listening to Dana's voice. Well, thank you. I keep meaning, of all these projects I want to do, all these ideas. I really would like to do a video, because I've had a lot of people say that they like to fall asleep listening to these videos, and I would love to take full credit and say that it's my delightful voice, but I know that it's not. I know that it's more kind of the general conversation matter, and just that feeling of feeling supported and validated, that I think is reassuring for a lot of people. So I do plan on making a video that is more like just relaxing, for people to feel validated and relaxing, and so they can go to bed. I will make that a priority. I need to figure out somebody to how to add music and stuff, because as we all know, technology and I have a very tense relationship. So you don't want me trying to figure that out, because it will take years. So um so let me scroll up and see. Oh, Abigail. Gosh, there's lots of heavy stuff going on this week. Abigail says, I don't know what to do. I have to go to my grandmother's funeral tomorrow. Oh man, I am so sorry, you guys. Oh, she says, I have loved my grandmother forever. Oh, honey. I have loved my grandmother forever, and now she's never waking up again. Oh, wow. That that is that is I am just so sorry for your loss. And but honestly, how special that you knew your grandmother at such a deep level for as long as you did. That's just so fortunate. And I would just so encourage you to hold, for both of you, to hold on to all of the good memories, because they would not want you to hold. I see so many people that do this. They commemorate a person's death, and that's a very strange thing for me. It's I would encourage you to hold on to their life, and kind of all of their lessons learned, and to really honor their life, honoring their life by honoring your life. And so, taking time out to just be like, you know what, my grandmother really liked this recipe, and so in her honor, I'm going to make this recipe every now and again, right? Or my grandmother really valued gardening, and so I'm going to, make a donation to my local community garden in her name, or doing these things that just honor her life, because that's that's my guess, is how that they would want to be remembered, kind of for the good that they did in their life. And Wayne says, yes, honor their life, not their death. They live through you. Yes, they do. They really, really do. Yes, Martine says, and also play music. It helps the process of grief faster. Cry a lot. It helps. Yeah, no joke, Doug. Doug says, we all need a huge group hug for love and life and people who are losing so much this week. Man, no joke. It's been an intense week for a lot of people. Yeah, so I guess like we do need a huge virtual hug, you guys. I'm just so sorry that you're going through so much, and it's I think it's great that that we have this group, that we can use the internet for good, that we can reach out to other people, and that people can get support. So, because life is not it's not easy sometimes, and it's nice to have other people that are going through stuff, that they can be there and support you. Oh, Cecilia. Cecilia says, I'm eating tons of coconut ice cream to get me through this and keep me from contacting my ex. So, and peanut butter cups from Valentine's Day. Well, you know what? If that's what it takes, coconut ice cream and peanut butter cups, it's okay. It's okay to just be like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do this for like the next week or two, and then this is going to get me through. So we all cope in different ways, and if that's your way of coping, then it's it's worth the calories. So because this will pass, and you're having a totally normal reaction to it's to a normal painful life situation, and we can't fix normal, you know. So yes, Cecilia says, it's better than a lot of other things I could be doing. Hands down. Yes. If that's the most self-destructive you can get, and if you're gonna just do that, if you're gonna kind of oink out for a week or two, then by all means go for it. And you work out regularly, you're fine. Then you're fine. So that was where I struggled for a long time. Is I love coconut ice cream, and I would eat a lot of it, but then I wouldn't work out. So like it helps that you have that balance there. Yeah, Wayne says, add some diet root beer and make a float and watch DVDs that make you laugh out loud. So that's nice. Patty says, prayers your way and all who have had losses this week. DA, I'm not sure what that means. DA passing always confirms how precious a moment is, and for me to put up with any abuse should not be in our cards. Cecilia says, I watched The Big Lebowski earlier. It's part of why I miss most of this live stream. She says, I feel like I need a reminder. I'm working on that, the whole live stream thing. Abigail asks, do you do live streams often? Yes, we do live streams every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm I need to kind of play around sometime this week. Maybe Martine, if you're around, we can troubleshoot this. Facebook now is a thing where you can live stream through Facebook, like through my Facebook page as well. And then I can also do Periscope. So I have a an iPad, and I have my laptop, and then I have like a Chromebook, and then I have my phone. So like I can put up different screens, so like if you follow me on Twitter, you would get a reminder, or a notification, not really a reminder. You get a notification every time I would start a live stream through Periscope. And I think you would get one too through my Facebook page. The only and we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. The only thing I need to kind of figure out is how private those things are. So Overcoming Understanding had said she had issues with somebody knowing exactly where she was because Periscope pins your location. I might be able to turn that off, so I'll have to check. And then the Facebook page, I need to see if people post like how those comments go, because I don't want people posting like a chat like it is here, thinking that it's private, but then it's like broadcast through Facebook. So I need to play with that a little bit more and make sure I fully understand it, so nobody, you know, is in danger or says things they don't mean to say in public. So okay, Adrian says, Dana, no Periscope, no privacy, and you're streaming. You can be physically found on the spot. Suzanne says, I wasn't happy about Facebook streaming, wanting control over my page. Yeah, see, I need to play with all that because I don't know. I don't know things like that, and so I need to figure it out. I will be Martine. It's probably gonna have to wait until this weekend, probably Saturday. We could play around with it if you're gonna. I know there's like a big time difference, so we'll if I'll try to catch you if I see you online, and we'll figure it out. Um, Abigail's hopping off. She said, "I have to go. Thank you. Bye. Have a great night, Abigail." Um, let's see. Garfield, hold on. I want to get your question here, but let me scroll down. Garfield says, "How can we allow these monsters to destroy our lives and try to control our minds? I've seen when my wife, I think you meant when my wife's mask has come off." That is like probably the number one question that victims of abuse ask themselves. And so, you know, it's normal. It's totally normal to be outraged and to be really upset and to be, that whole feeling of how like this person can't just keep doing this. And there's that whole level of just outrage and disgust and anger and wanting revenge and wanting to tell the world. And it's real. I think that's probably the number one thing that victims struggle with moving forward. So you're not alone in that feeling, and really this is what we can do about it. This does bring a voice to abuse. This does bring a voice to like moving forward and bringing awareness to these things. And right now at this point in the game, that's kind of all any of us can do, because that's the thing with abuse, is it's not, especially emotional abuse, especially if you're a man, right? It's not easily identified by other people. It's not, probably not even, was not even easily identified by you. So it's hard for other people to spot. It's hard for other people to believe. And it's very, very, very upsetting and frustrating for victims. But lots of men go through this. And so, there's, I don't even know how many men are on tonight, probably at least 10. So every week there's more and more men. There's lots of men in different support groups. Highly recommend that you consider getting into some different support groups. I have a couple. My website is called narcissistsupport.com, and you can go to my support group on there. There's also a link to my support group on Facebook. And there's lots of people that are on the chat right now are also in the different support groups. So I think for men, because, women have specific issues when they go through abuse, men also tend to have specific issues. And so even though it's nice that men and women can be together in a support group and they can support each other through like kind of the overall like umbrella of abuse, like identifying with the topic of abuse, there are certain things that that just, it's kind of unique to the male experience or unique to the female experience. And so it's nice if you can reach out to other guys and talk to them and kind of get feedback and get support and kind of just clarity and validation of what you're going through. So yes, Carlos says, as a man, you are always looked to as the person who is always wrong. Yes. And Wayne says, hey, there's no shame in my game. I don't blame me. I blame crazy. Well, good for you. Good for you for seeing it for what it is. Kevin says, the police think it's hilarious because I'm a man being abused by a woman. Yeah, it's really, it's interesting. They have, there's like different footage and stuff I've seen online, and I should make a note to myself to see if I can dig up some of that. Where they'll have, it's sort of like the whole like 2020 kind of thing where they stage different things, and they'll have one of a man kind of getting loud or getting kind of rough with the woman, and people will run to her rescue. And then they'll have the same footage with like, down the street or whatever, where the woman, and this is all like kind of hidden camera stuff, where the woman starts being verbally aggressive with the man or starts shoving him or hitting him, and people will actually join in and help her gang up on the guy, because society kind of thinks, well, he must have, it's terrible that he must have deserved it, right? Like maybe he cheated, he did something to deserve it. But the reality is nobody deserves to be abused. Period. Like it's never okay to treat a person like that. So there's a lot of re-education that needs to be done with you know with kind of abuse, and who can be abused and who can be a victim and who can be abusive and what abuse looks like. And a lot of men, a lot of police and attorneys and judges people in general don't understand. They're like, well, how can this woman be beating you up? She's half your size. But, men know. They're like, well, if I hit her, if I fought back, I don't want to go to jail. Or this woman is batshit crazy, so I'm not trying to make my situation worse. Or I don't want to make this any worse because we have kids together, and I don't want her to take it out on the kids. So there's lots of different reasons that men stay in these relationships, and there's lots of, because women tend to get full custody of the kids, and it can be really hard. I mean, there's so many different dynamics at play. That's just kind of unique to the male experience. I had a good male friend of mine, when he was going through his divorce, his wife just like went bananas and claimed that he was beating her and checked herself and their son into a domestic violence shelter. And I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I've known him for several years, and that's just really, and we used to work together. So I'd known him through like high stress situations, a lot of different situations. That did not seem like, I believed him when he said that she was concocting all of this in an attempt to get full custody, in an attempt to just to punish him. So, women can be all kinds of abusive in all kinds of different ways. Yeah. Practical Dreamer says, I know a couple of guys, both narcs, who were both sexually abused by older women when they were teenagers, and they don't think it's abuse because of all the double standards. It's sad. Yeah, there was a great picture, kind of like a meme kind of thing, floating around on Instagram a while back, and it was a picture of this drunk guy passed out at a party, and he was I think he was like, they'd stripped him down to his underwear, and there were like three girls that were like had stripped down to their underwear, and they were like rubbing themselves on him, right? And they were like posing, and they were kind of putting their crotch in his face and doing all these kinds of funny stuff. And you see the picture at first and you're like, oh, ha ha, but then the caption read, imagine if the roles were reversed. And then it makes you really realize, yeah, okay, so why is it okay for a guy to get passed out at a party, and these women are taking advantage of him and putting him in like sexually explicit situations? Society would go bananas if the roles were reversed and the woman had passed out and there's like half naked dudes rubbing their stuff all over her. So total double standard when it comes to like what's appropriate behavior, what like it's not okay. Like, it's not okay. So Wayne, yes, I did see your post about doing a self-love healing video. I will look into doing like an affirmation kind of video and seeing about getting some music. Um, so let me scroll up a little bit. There's Rosie says, "Yeah, I felt like I was going crazy. I actually went to a psychiatrist. Antidepressants helped, but that was not the problem." And so that's another great point. So a lot of people tend to get on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications because, especially again, this whole codependency thing, it's really if we don't know who we are, and we're so out of touch with how we feel, and feeling like crap has become the new normal, where we are just used to settling for a whole life of crumbs, then kind of the next step to that is getting on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications. And so my guess would be a lot of people that are on these two different meds, it's because they're in really bad relationships and they just don't identify that as what's going on. I have a couple friends that are on a bunch of medications, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I've tried talking to them about it, but it's that cognitive dissonance, that fog sets in, and they don't want to leave their relationship. So and I get it. It's like it's easier to stay and pretend that there's really not problems and just get on antidepressants than it is to actually leave sometimes. So, so yeah, I think that's a great sign. If you're on antidepressants or feeling like you need to be on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication, then it's probably a good sign to kind of take a step back and examine your life and kind of what's going on that's making you so anxious and so depressed, and how long it's been going on. An acquaintance of mine made a great comment the other day. It was we were talking about people that bring up old issues. I have a coworker and talking about kind of an affair. Her husband had an affair, and she had brought it up. Basically, it's because so. Anyways, this acquaintance of mine said, "You know what though? Old issues don't get brought up. It's unresolved issues that get brought up." And I thought that was so right on, because that's exactly what it is. It's unresolved issues. And so if a person's been has a whole bunch of unresolved issues that they've been stuffing deep down, they tend to self-medicate. They tend to cope with not being validated and not getting that expressed. So it's good to examine kind of what's really going on. Um, yes. Yes, a dark politician says, usually drugs can also cause this Jekyll and Hyde personality. Sometimes we forget how crazy this world has gotten. That is very true. So, and it's one of those things like we can only numb out for so long. And, it's like we can't run from stuff forever. And it's hard. It's hard, especially with abuse, because oftentimes people don't realize that they're being abused. If anything, a lot of victims tend to think that they're the problem. And so they're the ones that are in therapy for years or decades, trying to like work through their childhood, trying to work through all their stuff, thinking that they're the problem, but really they're the victim. They're being abused. Um, so So, guys, I need to hop off here pretty soon because it's getting late. Um, and the chat goes on. I don't know how late people stay on the chat, but I think that it kind of tends to go on for a while here. Um, so, Melanie says, when I was in my abusive relationship, my ex fiance said exactly this, that I am his property. I will never find anyone. And when he's done with me and then he leaves, still to this day, after 2 years, gets me. So a lot of them have that mentality. It's that territorial response to people, that we are all there for them. Everything is about them. Everything is about their wants and needs. And that mentality of like you belong to me is that's terrifying. That's a really scary thing to hear from another person. And so again, just always erring on the side of caution when it comes to things like that. Suzanne says, Dana, I couldn't get through to you in the closed chat about my resume panic. Um, Shoot. And I'm trying to think about how you can get through. Can you post something about it in Facebook and then tag me in it? And then that way I'll make sure to see it. I get so many videos. I not videos. I get so many messages every single day. I try to look for certain people's names, but I have just so you guys know, because I don't want it breaks my heart when people think that either I'm ignoring them or that I don't care or something, but I get hundreds of messages every day. I through my YouTube messages, through my Facebook page messages, through emails, and through the two different just Facebook private messages, Twitter, Instagram. I spend hours every single day responding to messages, and it still doesn't even make a dent in everything that I'm getting. So tag me on Facebook, and then we can see about uh, you know trying to figure out the resume stuff. So, and I'm just making a note here to myself. Resume, Facebook, Suzanne. So, okay, Suzanne says you sent me to a group. You sent me a group to join, which I did. Okay, yeah, just oh, she says, what is the tag? Um, so if you start typing in somebody's name on Facebook, so if you start typing in my name, like Dana, you can also tag Josh. I think he's still around. Um, Josh Penn is a moderator of the group. Wayne says, "Girl, you need an assistant." No joke. I needed an assistant like freaking 10 months ago. It's ridiculous. I don't even know. Like I'm so overwhelmed by all of the stuff. I don't even know like what an assistant would even help with. Honestly, I don't know. Well, I don't know. I'll have to do another video about that. We'll have to all brainstorm. But so tags, if you start typing in a person's name, it'll generally like populate their whole name. And then when you hit enter, it'll let them know like, hey, so and so mentioned you in this post. And then that way I know I need to go look at it because it was directed at me. It's kind of just that it's a way of messaging a person directly in a post. So, um, Martine says, "Can you pay me, Dana, for being an admin?" I honestly, like you joke, I would love to get to the place where my website and stuff was making like money, so where I could have a team of people because there's a lot of people here that are really passionate about this. There's a gal, her name is Dawn, and she volunteers. She runs the Facebook page. She does all of that, and she's just fantastic. So I don't know. I will have to figure. I need to do a whole video, and so we can brainstorm this because I would love to move in that direction. So even though you joke, I'm serious. Like I would love to be able to pay people to to be able to do this. So somebody asked for the link to the Facebook group. So let me get on there really quick and then I will post it. I am working on that. Hold on just a second. Ah, hello. my computer doing? There it goes. All right. That is the link to the Facebook group. The group on Facebook is called Healing After Narcissistic Abuse. Is that my group? Is that what it's called? It is called that. I've changed the name. Like, if you guys have been with me since the beginning of this, then you know, like, it's just been just very inconsistent. So we've been trying to figure out different names, and the group has changed names, and it's just been like kind of one thing after another. But Kevin says, you need to post cat videos and video game reviews so you get that YouTube money. Maybe, well, Kevin, we'll put that idea like in the maybe pile. How about that? Maybe we'll get a mascot that's like a kitten, and maybe that'll help. Here's something ironic for you, real quick, too. For Ghost Hunter, it mentioned. Did you? Oh, wait. Actually, before, I want to see exactly what you said. Garfield says, Dana, they need more people like you because, like I said, Lucifer was a narcissist. We need more angels like you. Oh, that's really nice. Thank you. Thank you. So here's something that's really, really weird about that. You know what's weird? So, my my grandfather was a minister, and he was also a narcissist, and my grandmother was an absolute like saint of a woman. She just was just the sweetest, kindest, most wonderful woman out there. Very codependent. And so my mother's maiden name is Morningstar, which I didn't learn this until recently, but how crazy is this? So in the Bible, both Jesus and Lucifer are referred to as the morning star. So it's a name for both Jesus and the devil. And I thought, how weird that that's a family name of mine. So it's sort of like, I feel like, I just, like, this is in my family blood to like kind of champion this cause and to talk about it. It's weird. And I've been thinking about changing my last name to Morningstar, kind of for privacy reasons, and just changing because I've already had some issues. So we'll see. I might go to Dana Morningstar here in the very near future. So yes, Martine says, my current last name is the Gelsomino is my current last name. That's the Italian word for jasmine. So, and supposedly it was the name that was given to all of the quote unquote illegitimate children, which makes total sense if you were to know my family. So they gave it to all of the wildflowers, is what they would call these children. So, yeah, it's Practical Dreamer says it's my stage name. Yes, that would be my stage name. Dana Morningstar. Oh, that's cool. Ghost Hunter says, Dana, I recommend Raven. First off, you have black hair, which is awesome, but ravens in native culture are the bringers of light, and that is what you are doing. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. Melanie asks, are these groups only pages you can like? It's not giving me the option to join. It should. It should give you the option to join. This is not. I gave you the link to the group. The group is called Healing After Narcissistic Abuse. If you go and look, it's you have to join, and then we have to approve you. So it does take. Give us some time. There's a handful of moderators there that we all tend to like approve people around the clock. So, let's see. Rosie says, in Latin America, we have a lot of abuse and there is no information in Spanish. So so my website, Rosie, and then for other people that are on that are from English is not their first language, my website has an option. My website is narcissistsupport.com. There's an option for it to be translated in any language. It's I think there's a tab at the kind of like the bottom right hand side of the screen that says translate, and any language out there, the website can be translated into. I would like to translate my videos into Spanish at some really into as many languages as possible. I don't know how to do that as far as like closed captioning goes, so people would have the option of listening to videos in different languages, or if I'd have to like re-record them in all the different languages, which is fine. I'm open to doing that. I just don't know how to go about doing that. She says, can we translate for you? That would be fantastic. Would be a massive undertaking, which we could definitely, we could definitely figure something out, because that really would be a massive project. But, let me think about how that would work with translating. I've been thinking about doing podcasts too, so turning these videos into podcasts and doing them in Spanish as well. Oh, okay. Believe in Love says, Martine, it was actually you that helped Dana. Was already done and I was hurting and you took a moment from me. Yes, Martine is fantastic. Like, so super helpful. He's been around pretty much since day one. And yeah, Martine, I don't know if I probably don't say this enough, but thank you so much for all that you do, because you are very much a valued member of this team and of this community. And yes, I can put the link in that's a great idea. I'll put the link in the bottom of the live stream thing, so it automatically defaults to that every single time. It's also it's also on my about page on YouTube. All of my links to everything, like Instagram and Facebook and the website and all of that. So Garfield says, I'm very happy that they have people like you out there to help people like us. Well, Garfield, I was people like you. That's how I got to doing all of this. And so it's it's my pleasure. This is something that I really enjoy doing, and it's really nice to be able to be healed from all of this and be able to kind of give back. And um, you know, it's you're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you guys for supporting each other and being such a fantastic community, and so like just loving and supportive and amazing, and the feedback and the time that everybody spends with each other is just so heartwarming to see, because everybody here I know is in a tremendous amount of pain, and for people to be able to step out of their own pain and go help a total stranger with their situation just really speaks volumes about you guys and about your character and about just everything that you're doing is just, it's phenomenal and very much appreciated. I just think it's really just, it's good juju. So G Marie says, thank you so much for consistently doing these chats every week. Yeah, you guys are so welcome, and thank you so much for showing up. And yes, I need to go to bed and just decompress. It's been a really long day. So you guys take care, and I will catch you next week. If I don't see you on one of the support groups before then. So take care. It's always lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. You can go forward and have an absolutely amazing life, an even better life than you had before. So just know that. Just know that, okay? So take care, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, bye.